It's time to be woke, take off your shades, it helps see through the smoke, cause the wicked hide behind the cloak, and if you stay in the mist, you gon' be soaked, so listen up, cause this hair of the dog, what's real, what ain't, is this the fog or smog, cause there's a difference when you breathe it in, so don't let the corporate media take you for a spin, this that morning show, they put you in the know, so I hope that you ready, cause all we do is go, 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 yeah, come get your info, you gon' be like, whoa. Dog, we bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Speeding the fact.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hair of the Dog. I'm Andy Kennedy. It is Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us. I must admit, I am walking around kind of in a fog this morning. Got a lot of stuff happening. I've got 2 sick puppies at home and trying to get a bunch of stuff done. And I've always been someone that's prided myself on not having to write stuff done and relying solely on my memory, which typically works for me. But because of my current situation, I'm currently feeling like, when you walk from one room to another and you get to your destination room and then you look in the room and you think, why the hell did I come in here? I'm feeling like that all the time right now. So I think I'm either going to have to, start writing things down or drink, one or the other. But regardless of that, we have a big show for you today, and it is going to be part 2 of our series about servant leadership. And that begins with the introduction of my lovely and talented co-host, Miss Carrie Barber. Good morning, Carrie. And
Muted.
just like that.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah, and see, that was a moment where I just thought, did I forget to do something?
No, you were absolutely fine. So, I am back in business. So thank you everybody for your patience on Monday. It was craptacular lighting setup, but I am, I'm good to go. So yeah, looking fabulous. So, Sorry, you're not feeling well, Andy.
Well, it's not so much that I'm like physically I'm feeling okay. It's just, you get inundated with a whole bunch of things to do. And I think it's human nature that you feel the pressure of all of them at once. And we have a tendency to just think of them as a group instead of just individual things that you need to get done, and then just concentrate on one and get it done and move on to the next thing. And then eventually you clear your slate and everything's fine again. But I suffer from that. I have always kind of wore the burden of all of those things when they occur, and it's debilitating, right? It makes you feel like you can't get everything done at once, so you can't accomplish anything, right? And I think I think most people can relate to that, but it's just about setting your sights on a specific thing to do and then just doing it. And I guess I just have to remind myself that that's how you get things done, right?
Oh, absolutely. And with the project that we're working on right now, I keep getting reminded. So thank you, Kay. You're eating an elephant. You're eating an elephant one bite at a time. So
right.
You do
You're
what you
boiling
can.
the ocean.
Yes, exactly. So good morning to everybody who's joining us this morning. If this is your first time joining us, good morning, welcome. We are live and interactive. If you type in the chat, particularly on our Facebook page, we'll see you and we will read your comments in air, engage with you. And we do want this to be interactive because obviously, as much as we like to think that we know everything, we don't. And you guys have such wonderful insight and commentary to share that we want you to be part of every broadcast, every program. And this one in particular, because this is part of our series that we started. If you missed Monday's episode, go back and watch it. We're talking about servant leadership in the context of the progressive movement. because it feels like, progressivism has been around for a while, and then we've organized and gathered for a number of years, but we don't seem to be making any headway. And there are other reasons for it. Obviously, we're fighting the oligarchy, and did we honestly think that they were just going to hand us the keys? No. But the other part of this is we could do so much to advance our cause, to save the planet, save each other, and kindness, but we're just spinning our wheels. And part of it looks like we haven't been taught how to be leaders. And in this context, you don't necessarily have to be CEO of an organization or owning something, owning a project or outreach. This is you on an individual level. Are you a leader and a master of yourself? And this is part of it. And I go back to the Shakespeare. It was a poem he wrote, All the World's a Stage. And in it, he talks about we will be tested and some will fall. And it, all of us are going to fail at some point, but it's how you get up and how you move forward. And these tests will come in very small and very large ways. And if I fail a test, whether it's large or small, it affects not just me, but other people around me. So how do we do better? And I can't rely on someone else to help me be a better leader if they don't have the tools to help me get there or remind me about what I should be doing. And a lot of this, as we talked about on Monday, the overview, just a broad overview that we did, deals in, number one, humility. So it goes back to, remember Bernie Sanders, all of us or none, or would you fight for someone you don't know? So those two concepts go together under the servant leadership bridge. And this is what we want to talk about. So we did the overview on Monday. So today we're going to come up with some examples, some things that have happened recently. Some of you are aware of it, some of you aren't. And we don't want to present this in a gotcha moment or anything like we're punching left. These are clear examples of things that happened where leaders failed. And I don't want to call out just leaders of organizations, but across the board. And it translated it was like a domino effect. One person failed in their judgment and then brought that to someone else. And then I have a cat, sorry. And then they brought that to someone else, and that group of people failed. And then it just went down the line. And I think a lot of this was because we don't understand how to be leaders. So if you missed Monday's episode, go back and watch it. We'll do more on this theme because everything that we're doing in the progressive movement hinges on us getting this right and being good people to each other and really making an effort to be humble and have a strong moral compass, because when we do that, there's really nothing that we cannot achieve. So let's get into it. And we are fortunate to welcome back somebody that we had as a guest. We had Kamilah Harris and Stephen on when we were part of the DLF network, and we did the interview about some issues that had arisen under the Movement for a People's Party. And I know that there were a number of organizations who had the same kind of interview and taking a look, but nobody really touched on, us included, the servant leadership principle, except when it came to the accountability question. And this went to the former volunteers of Movement for a People's Party who were asking for improvement in the way that the organization operated. Well, one individual in that organization, Nick Brana, and a few others chose not to be accountable and instead went a different direction. So I think we're fully familiar with what was going on there, and it's still continuing in that organization. But this is now part two of what's happened, and I think it further exacerbates the issue that originated with one small issue, and now it's kind of snowballed into a bigger issue. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome back Miss Kamilah Harris. Good morning, Miss Kamilah.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for getting up early once again with us. We appreciate it. Okay, so let's go through this in a broad brush, and I'm gonna just give a little highlight. Andy, correct me if I'm wrong. Kamilah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just want to put the timeline out there so we can set up and do a deep dive on this particular story. So most people in the leftist space are familiar with the petitioners. These are the MPP petitioners, and some of the grievances and suggestions they had to reform that organization and really make it a viable alternative to the duopoly. So in my opinion, was meant in good faith, and it wasn't really getting any traction. So the petitioners have been forcing the issue, kind of like the force the vote thing, pushing it, elevating it, asking questions, challenging leadership, and in particular Nick Grana, to address their concerns and some of the issues that were going on there. So in that particular effort, Kamilah was one of the people who was doing it. And for those of you who are familiar with the organization work that Kamilah does, she's phenomenal on social media. So if you've seen her posting repeatedly about the petitioners, she's doing her job right. Okay, so we, shout out there to Kamilah. You are really helping to raise this issue, and as a consequence, we've seen Miss Renee was just on the Hill and was interviewed, and a number of other petitioners have gone on and told the story. So you are actually doing your job in that respect as an organizer. Would you agree?
Yes. And to give people even some more context, the MPP petitioners group was basically like an informal union of volunteers and organizers who all had like similar experiences and I guess I would say challenges in their work, dealing with the leadership, getting support. There was a lot of like neglect, abandonment. There was misinformation passed along, misguidance, um, different little things like that that they were just adding up so high that everybody was looking at each other like, okay, something is not right, and we need to address the leadership in some kind of way to get these things fixed, to get these things above board. And so that's how the petition itself came to be. Like, people just kind of had like a meeting of the minds, and then they started circulating the petition to see if anyone else had similar issues. And I was one of those people that I observed all of these things, but I was never like outspoken about it. I never even was in any discussions about it at all. And so when I got the petition, I was actually like kind of jolted. I was thrilled. And I wanted to see what the leadership was how the leadership was gonna handle it. Like what was their side of things.
Okay. Okay, and it's interesting that you talk about a union of people, because on the left in particular, we're strong supporters of unions, and union is nothing more than a group of coworkers who get together to improve the workplace. So this is what you were doing without a contract. You were just a group of folks who wanted to make improvements. Is that correct?
Yes. We just saw like structural systemic issues within the organization that a lot of us did not understand, especially since it was over some basic things. I mean simple stuff like transparency. We had questions about finances. We had questions about the internal customer service and why it wasn't to the level that it was supposed to be. It was funny. There were even people within MPP that didn't even know what MPP was. This is how miscommunications and people just in the workspace, just I guess for lack of better words, like chilling in there, or relaxing, and they're not really focused on, okay, how do we get MPP out to the people and how are we packaged and who we are and all that kind of stuff. I mean, these basic things were just like dysfunctional. And so, yeah, you're correct. Like basically we just all came together and was like, okay, we need to address the leadership about these things because there was hemorrhaging of volunteers. Like there was turnover before I got into MPP, during my time there, and then of course after. And that was something we really wanted to address so bad.
Okay, no, that totally makes sense because attrition in any organization, as we talked about on Monday, is very expensive. Time, money, effort, as well as enthusiasm. And when you're all volunteers, that's kind of a big deal in an organization. So so that effort was going on, and even those who had left the organization, or night of the long knives, whatever happened, this great purge, those people are still trying to make the effort, which to me speaks to the dedication, and these people still have this mission at mind. So all of that effort is going on behind the scenes, but you yourself, you weren't done trying to make a difference. So you and other people went in different organizations, and I talked to a few other organizers who are doing phenomenal things, and I've shown them, here's the union that will help actually write a contract for what you're doing and actually get you organized in this new effort. And so I know a lot of you are still out there trying to live the whole message, right? And be activists in whatever space it is. So you ended up going to KRTD, is that correct?
Yes. That was one of the opportunities that came across my way. In this, because we came out to the media. My first interview was actually with Frank Analysis, and it was part of a panel and stuff. And I guess the executive director of KRTD Media, Shane Coughlin, had discovered us with this story, and I guess there were things going on with KRTD Media where they wanted to do a story on what we were talking about. And so
right, yeah. They did interview you on this particular segment because I remember talking to Shane after we did our interview with you, and he mentioned something. Did that actually happen? Did you do the interview?
Yes, it actually happened on my birthday, March 15th. Oh. I spent my birthday talking, having an interview talking about what happened, and there was a gentleman, I think his last name was like Cayetano or something like that. He was from the New Jersey Green Party. So it wasn't just me on that interview, but I learned a lot from that interview, doing that interview, about the Green Party's role in all of the drama and stuff, because MPP, Nick Brana, he basically marginalized the Green Party. So there was at one point, supposedly there was supposed to be some kind of coalition of third parties and stuff to kind of, parallel each other when it comes to the elections and different things, and, kind of make it like, I guess some, for lack of better words, like synergy kind of a thing, where, independents could take over a state, and you still have the multiple parties, but at least that power is there. And Nick Brana and MPP was like, thanks, but no thanks to that, offer. And the interview goes into like the details of that story through Mr. Caretano. And yeah, it was all like interesting to me. But yeah, that happened actually on my birthday. So
okay, well, happy belated. So we have a couple people jumping in the chat. I just want to acknowledge them and remind them that feel free to jump in this particular conversation. So Misanthropic, you're here on time today. Thank you so much for that. And then we have Miss Lisa, and then Renee Johnson, rock star, joining us. So and then Mags says hi, Kamilah, with a little heart. So
hello, Mags. That's one of my fellow petitioners and peers. Very awesome guy. He was one of the tech people involved with the tech working group. So, yeah.
Okay. And then Renee just, she wants to reiterate the point that you just made about coalition building. She said, there are groups coordinating the left, and MPP is not part of that coalition. And that's something that we're seeing across the board, right? Because we have progressives running as independents, as Greens, as whatever. And then our progressives in blue are not necessarily helping, and vice versa, and that's kind of a problem nationwide. So now here we see it in MPP. So let's keep going with the story. You're now at KRTD. Because honestly, you know, Andy and I talked about it after we interviewed you and Stephen. We were so impressed with your organizing credentials, and you're very articulate and knowledgeable. And we both said, these are people with a high value skill set in the movement. And we were a little disappointed to see that this was happening. So personally, I was thrilled to see a lot of these petitioners find their space in other ways or make their space, and then you joining KRTD. And this is kind of where we got involved in the story on the periphery, because when you joined KRTD, we had just gone into syndication, and you really made a difference for us when it came to viewership on the KRTD network, just because you were kicking ass with social media and marketing for us in particular. So, you know, thank you for that.
Yes,
So,
and quite honestly, we needed someone in VP in charge of ass kicking.
that needs to be a title.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yes.
personally, I love this show, and I think a lot of people like really don't know about this show. And so, like, you know, my position in KRTD Media was I wanted to be a part of, you know, amplifying the brand, like amplifying the show, because, you know, I think, yeah, more people should watch it. I had just checked earlier. I was like, you guys are like 4 subscribers away from 50, and I'm like, you know, yeah, let's keep growing this thing, because, you know, I think more people need to watch the episodes on this channel. I've learned a lot from the ones that I watched, and, you know, I'm very picky about who I watch now, you know, especially with all the Twitter beefing and all that stuff that's going on. I'm super picky about who I watch, and I really recommend people to watch this show.
Oh, see, your check's in the mail, girl.
Yeah. I'm gonna call I think she's just sucking up. I think that's
could be, but yeah. So we appreciate that, and we appreciate the enthusiasm. But you were bringing your talents, effort, and everything to bear for KRTD, including for those who are familiar with it, the U.S. Solutions Summit that just happened last month. So that was May 12th. I may have the date wrong. I'm old.
I think it was around like the 20th, like 20 something. Yeah, it's been like a few weeks or so far. So I'm like lost on dates myself, but yes.
Right. Okay. So this was a monumental effort. So it was like 6 different panels over a 5-hour period. And so there's a ton of work in coordinating and marketing, and there were a number of people involved, including yourself, right?
Yes. I was actually the person that was over the public relations. So there had been like some shifts in my titles as far as KRTD Media is concerned, because they're technically a startup. They're a media startup company, and they're trying to get on the map. So the Solutions Summit was kind of like their splash event, like similar to how the People's Party was the splash event for MPP. And you know how, you know, once the whole George Floyd thing happened, it was kind of like that big splash for Black Lives Matter global network. So so Solution Summit was you know, substantively is a good event. The left needed to have some kind of forum where we talked about solutions to America's problems, you know, or even like solutions to, you know, organizing or activism or things like that, mobilizing. And that's what the opportunity was about. You're right. It was 5 hours, 6 panels of people from all across the left media spectrum, actually being in roundtables talking about various topics, from education to economics to I guess the environment. There was different press freedom. There was like different things that each panel was talking about. And that was the opportunity that I was, you know, trying to pitch to everyone. And we had our social media pages for the event. We had a website for the event. I was, you know, also in charge of the press releases and stuff like that. So that was a lot of my work. I was the public relations director You know, if you want to put it in the actual title sense, that's who I was for that.
Right, right. And I thought it was I it appealed to me because it was solutions based, right? It's easy to get up on in front of a camera and start bitching about X, Y, and Z. If you don't have good viable solutions or get to have that discussion, then yeah, you're just, you know, spinning your wheels. So there was a lot of good commentary and advice that came out of it. And one of them that I wanted to showcase here was a comment at the end of the last segment with Jimmy Dore. So it's just a very small clip. It's about a minute long. Andy, would you mind queuing that up, please?
Yeah, can I just say one thing? You know, I hear a lot about, oh, people want to say, hey, stop with all the infighting, right? The infighting's not helpful. And you know, infighting is when people who share common goals disagree on a strategy to get there. And what I think we saw with Forced to Vote is that a lot of people actually don't share our common goals. They pretend to share our common goals. And then when the moment comes to act on our common goals, they kneecap it and bullshit us and stand in our way. And because they're not, so that's not infighting. That it's very helpful to illuminate the people who are actually not, don't share our common values and get them out of the way, because they're, for whatever reason, they're carrying water for politicians and the establishment. And so we saw that with the Intercept. I mean, the Intercept now is just a garbage organization, just like the Young Turks and a lot of other people. So that's not. I just want to make sure I get that message out there, because I see that in a lot of other shows. That'll be a topic. Hey, with the infighting, it's not infighting when you're exposing that these other people don't actually share our goals, and to dismiss them. That's not infighting. Okay, that's all. I just wanted to make that.
Now, Carrie, I believe that segment was at almost the very end of the entire thing, right? It was panel 6, almost at the end of that segment. So it would have been just at the very end of the entire discussion, I believe.
Yeah,
Isn't that
it
true?
was just moments before. Yeah, moments before the entire event wrapped up, and I was watching it, you know, kind of listening in the background. And then when he spoke up, I'm like, that's actually really good advice. Here's the problem. I knew what was happening behind the scenes, so I was. On one hand, it's good advice because it talks about accountability, but where it made me uncomfortable is I knew what had transpired the Thursday before. So this aired on a Saturday, Thursday before. So just for people who aren't familiar, here's what was going on behind the scenes and where we got involved in a place where we were being tested. When going back to the moral compass of servant leadership. So on Thursday, as I was mentioning to Kamilah before we went live, I was out of cell service and I came back and my cell phone just blew up. Absolutely blew up. And I was like, what is going on? And it was all about the US Solutions Summit. And I was told by several individuals that Steph Zamora, Jimmy Dore's wife, had made a call to Shane Coughlin and demanded that Kamilah be fired from the organization, or she and Jimmy, the first conversation was she and Jimmy would pull out of the event completely. In the second conversation, it was not just she and Jimmy, but Graham Elwood and who's the other guy? Sorry.
Ron Pacone.
Ron Pacone. So I have no idea if these other two individuals were aware of it or if this was just a statement being made. But I immediately reached out to Shane Coughlin, because in my mind, going back to see servant leadership and having been in a management role over small organizations and global organizations, the first thing you do is, well, thank you, Mr. Mora. I appreciate your concern. We stand by our employee, and I'm sorry that you won't be participating. I hope that we can come to some conciliatory agreement or continue these talks. I see you're very upset. Let's talk through it. But our employee has done nothing wrong. And so when I had that conversation with Shane, the expression of concern was, well, that put us in an impossible position because we are just days away from the event and we've already put out the advertising. We can't do it. So to me, there's no gray area. You put out the information. If somebody's going to be dug in and trying to strong arm your organization, in particular, getting one of your employees fired for not having done anything wrong, right? It's different had Kamilah gone out there and showed her ass and talked about all white people are racists and blah, 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 right? If she had done something discriminatory against a protected class or something immoral or any of those things, none of that happened. So this is going back to our episode on Monday. Leadership means you are a servant to your people and you protect them from the suits. So in this case, the suits are the people in power above you, and it happened to be somebody with strong reach. And this is, somebody that I think we all deeply respect, who may have made a decision based on not enough information, right? And we can get into where that came from just a little bit, but I feel like people make decisions based on emotion without all of the information available. So here is the cascade. You had the Nick Brana thing, and then you had Steph Zamora and Jimmy Dore, because they have a relationship as advisors with this organization. And then they're responding to perhaps, this is where I'm going to get into, I don't have the facts to back this up, but maybe they've been told some things about these petitioners that may or may not be true. So they would not have the information to make an informed decision. So therefore, perhaps this emotional phone call came out. So let's get into what happened, Kamilah, if you're comfortable with it, on that Thursday, just briefly, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, going into the Solution Summit, because the first initial conversation that I had with Shane was, don't worry about it. We've asked Kamilah to step back and we're going to bring her back on Sunday. Because I told Shane at that time, if you are making this decision going along with this, then I'm not comfortable participating in the U.S. Solution Summit. It's not something I can be a part of because of the work that I do in other spaces. I have to be absolutely ethical. And Andy and I talked about it because Andy was also going to be a host. So Andy, I'm not going to speak for you, but it was just an uncomfortable position for not only us as individuals, but where do we put our brand? And so,
yeah, and that's exactly right. And we've been advocates for the policy of, and how many times have we talked about it, Gary? We always take the high road, right? That if we are going to call out other actors in our space for doing nefarious things or fraudulent things, but we don't live by what we're doing in a just way, then that makes us just as fraudulent or just as nefarious. And we always try to keep that in mind. So agree totally. If you don't stand for your people, then you're willing to compromise on your policies, right? And I think that's the overreaching thing that we're looking at here with what transpired through this whole thing.
Yeah. So Kamilah, you want to take us through just briefly what happened on Thursday? Because you told me that you got a call out of the blue and you weren't, you yourself were taken by surprise.
Yes, I actually was taken by surprise because I had no idea what was going on behind my back. I was basically just doing, my job, just doing the social media management stuff, promoting it on, various spaces like Discord, trying to get people to get, the press releases and get all the information about who's going to be at the Solution Summit and, how people should, do watch parties and, I'm trying to get all creative and all that kind of stuff. So that was basically what I was in the mindset of. But Shane Coughlin had called me like the afternoon Thursday, which was 2 days before the Solution Summit, and was irate. Like literally, like, how could you do this to us? And I'm thinking in the back of my head, what are you talking about? And he said, Twitter. I said, what about Twitter? I said, I was promoting, like, you know, the Solution Summit and the shows and all that stuff. So what are you talking about? He's talking about the hashtags. And then the only thing I could think about was my personal account. Because, like, my job with KRTD Media was dealing with just specifically KRTD Media stuff. So it had nothing to do with my personal account. And so I was like, what is he? And so he said, well, in a nutshell, Steph Zamorano got a tweet that I amplified with hashtags like I've done for months in social media protesting and whistleblowing about MPP, and became livid, got lit, whatever. I don't know. She got triggered and bothered somehow to the point of calling Shane and giving this ultimatum. Like, if you don't fire Kamilah, then I'm not going to be on the Solution Summit. And so there were also back and forth, like, conversations, like, after I was on the phone with Shane, specifically to where there was a board of directors emergency meeting to fire me. It was without me. So I didn't even know anything happened until I had to go around asking questions about what's going on. And then there was also this other, you know, like, action where I had to talk to someone else who was involved with the event. Well, actually, I had to talk to the event manager about it and say what was going on. And they was like saying, well, it was basically you or Steph Zamorano, and for the sake of the organization, you know, KRTD, where, you know, it was asked that you know, step down. Of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm fired. Like, what did I do to get fired? And why are they taking Steph Zamorano's side of this whole thing? And it was communicated to me that Steph Zamorano got, you know, for lack of better words, pissy because of Jimmy Dore's relation to MPP and how my social media whistleblowing and, you know, in protesting was, like, quote, out of line. Like, you know,
Okay. So
yeah.
when I was having this conversation with Shane, I was like, but wait a second. And I asked him directly, we interviewed Kamilah and Stephen, and so did you. Was she not familiar with that work? And he said, oh, well, I don't know if she know. I don't recall what his answer was at the time. But I want to go back to that something you said. You were doing this on your social media, and Renee has chimed in. She said, I thank you, Renee, for stepping up. She says, respect that we were covering this. And as the person Kamilah was retweeting, she said she was extremely distressed this happened to her. And she wants to clarify the tweets that were called out, the false statements regarding the 150K membership of MPP, and the emails going to people who didn't want emails, just like no one wants the truth. So, Andy, if you wouldn't mind, this is the next clip, because all of this was going on, right? So we've got the information as to why they had this emergency board meeting. You maintain that you were doing this all on your own personal account, as you had been before you joined as you joined KRTD. We all knew about it. We've seen it. I've been tagged in a number of them, been asked to clarify on certain points, all of that. So this was no big secret, except when somebody of influence decides to flex. Really, let's call it what it is. Somebody was trying to flex. So I was part of First Friday's event with Shane Coughlin. It was a news roundup thing on a Friday. This happened on June 4th. So this was a full 2 weeks after this event where you were terminated. And so far as I knew, you were supposed to be brought back, but still hadn't been. And here I am doing this live broadcast with Shane. So this clip is about 2 minutes long. And what we're talking about here on the June 4th event was on the Rising, with Sagar and Crystal Ball leaving, and then Kyle Kalinski's his rant after the fact. So we had just watched a clip of Kyle Kalinske talking about the disparity between the way Crystal was treated on her moonlighting podcast and the way Sagar was treated on his moonlighting podcast. So that sets up the context of what we were talking about. But this 2-minute clip, and you can see I don't have a poker face in it, and I'll let it speak for itself. So Andy, would you be so kind as to start that one up, please?
Right. So with that, I think that's a little bit different. Hill said, I don't think if there was something specific in Crystal's contract, I'm sure they would have let them know to begin with. Sagar does a podcast on YouTube called the Realignment Podcast, and he was doing that, and they never said anything to him. And that podcast goes up on YouTube in full episodes, and they never said he can't do a podcast, and they even let him talk about his podcast on The Hill Rising. When it came to Crystal, said, "Hey, you can't talk about your podcast here, but you can do it." And they actually told her you're not allowed to acknowledge the existence of it. And then they banned Kyle from ever coming back on Rising.
Sure, that's called a moonlighting clause, and most corporations have one.
Okay.
So again, it goes back to, has Kyle never worked for a corporate entity before?
Oh, never.
So of course he'd be shocked. But as a corporation, it's your play space. You can do this. And she signed the agreement and she cashed the check. So she was obviously okay with it. But here's where it got interesting for me. You had somebody in the executive office telling one of their employees what they could and could not do. And Kyle said that's wrong. Shane, how do you feel about that?
I definitely think there's something wrong with that, especially there definitely should not be. Well, it would also depend on Crystal's contract, I would actually have to say. You'd have to see what Crystal's contract says, because I think, to my knowledge, now the contracts are not public. So to my knowledge, they're very similar to Sagar's contract. They had a very similar contract. I think that was mentioned once before. No, I don't know if there was a moonlighting clause in Crystal's, but there was not in Sagar's, because he did the Realignment Podcast every week or whatever that was.
Well, that's speculation. We don't know that for sure.
That's true. But yeah, that's definitely something to look at.
Okay, so Carrie, I'm just going to critique your facial expressions and say that you reminded me of Dr. Fauci standing beside Trump.
Right. I don't have a poker face, and most people who know me, I was appalled, absolutely appalled, and which is why I called out that comment, because behind the scenes, yet again, Andy and I had reached out to Indy Left, and we'd reached out to Shane and the board of directors, and every time it was, we want to know the status of Kamilah Harris. What is going on? Because I was originally told Sunday she would be brought back. And then in another conference call that we had with some of the board members, Indy Left and Shane Coughlin, Shane refuted that he ever said Sunday. And then they said, well, we're working on it. So here's what they were saying. They were saying that they were trying to bridge the gap, and that that Steph had relented a little bit. Steph Zamorano had relented. She said, bring me the top 3 things these petitioners are upset about that you believe are credible. I will review them. So we understood that this team of people had the right motivation to build bridges and rectify the situation, that those things were moving forward. This was now June 4th. And I get that people are busy and maybe nobody really gives a shit, but we did. And so I was still doing the work for KRTV and Shane in particular, and really not getting an answer. So Andy, am I wrong? I mean, because I'm far more militant than you are. We know that you're a much better person than I am. So I'm going to characterize it in probably negative terms, because the whole situation was, I wanted to believe that there was an opportunity, but I could see, because I'm a cynic, something wasn't right.
Well, let me further just say that, and this is just for clarification. clarification. But as I recall, we were told what had happened right back onto the Thursday, just before the summit, that the entire process of deciding what to do with Kamilah involved Kamilah, that she had wholeheartedly agreed with the decision for her to step down, and that she knew that she would be brought back on soon. That's as I can recall, what we were told before the summit, before the Solutions Summit actually occurred. And from what I understand, Kamilah, you're refuting that, correct?
Basically what has been happening kind of reminds me of like deja vu with like, NPP and all that stuff. And basically what happened with me was about a lot of future faking, as I call it. And I got those scripts of we're working on it. We didn't forget about you, stuff like that. And so my observation was like it was quick for them to fire me, because them saying, oh, she agreed to just, be let go. And it was like, no, for the sake of the event, I went ahead and followed through with being fired. I didn't put up a fuss or anything. I was like, for the integrity of the event, I'm going to step aside, stop my work, halt my work, and when the summit is over, y'all need to decide what you're going to do with me. I need to have a due process, for, what's going to happen. And so I've been constantly like on their Discord, like, so what's going on? Like you had this emergency meeting to quickly fire me, but you haven't had a meeting to give me due process and to see if I'm going to be restored or not. If you don't want me to be with KRTD Media because of Steph Zamorano, that's your commitment to her versus me, then let me go. I'm not someone to be put on a shelf and be in limbo forever until you figure yourself out. That's not how this works. I'm a human being. There are opportunities that are coming to me, and I have put them on hold in respect to KRTD Media because the work that I was doing, I thought was like really cool, and I was getting experience and stuff that I've never really done before. And I'm trying to, build up my resume. I'm trying to build up my chops so that I could be, more eligible or qualified to do, other work. Because I mean, this is unpaid. I was a volunteer person, a volunteer staffer, if you will, of KRTD Media. And so I'm not understanding how it was swift to fire me, but they chose not to be swift in restoring me if they were really about me being on the team.
So it sounds to me, basically, that this appears to be, instead of, doing the right thing and standing up for your employee, for lack of a better term, than it is to basically just do damage control.
Right. It's all about damage control. And even tying back into the servant leadership topic, when there's any like drama like this or like, just rot in the organization, people need to look up instead of down, because this whole thing of like, well, the organization might be infiltrated, or, these little conspiracy theories about the workers without looking at the people who are at the top of the organization and the drama that could be from them that's punching down at us, it is what people for some reason don't get through their heads that they need to, observe. They just think like, oh, people are just trying to, manipulate the top or like sabotage the organization or, infiltrate or be operatives or plants and all this kind of a thing. It's like, no, we were under tyranny as workers in some form.
Okay, so let me just interject here because our chat is just blowing up. So Renee just sent me a screenshot where she was she was discussing this with Indie Left, and I'm not sure where this occurred. It might be Twitter or something else, but Indie Left approached Renee specifically on the 25th of May, and she responded with those 3 things that Steph Semorano had asked for. So thank you for that, Renee. And then, so when the timeline goes through, again, people have schedules and, you know, maybe they don't give a shit. This isn't a high priority, but here you have the question asked, the response on the 25th. And then throughout all of this, in the back of my head, I've got the journalism ethics going. I absolutely must live up to the journalism ethics, because at the same time, I'm working with journalists in Gaza, 2 of whom are now dead with their entire family. So I've got 10 more that I'm supporting, and I have to be absolutely pristine in everything that I do to protect that work and some other things that are going on here in the United States. So Andy and I were having these conversations where I'm really upset, because now we are part of a story and there's an ethical component in it. So we were trying to do our due diligence, and we were asked to not talk about this so that this building bridge effort could happen. And then there was at one point where I had to leave a job site to go find internet to have a call with KRTD, and it was specifically about this particular issue with what is going on with Kamilah. And we were again asked to stand down. Please don't do the story. It's already on Twitter. We are working on it. Give us time. And this was Indie Left and Shane Coughlin who both maintained that. So the oh, have I been muted that whole time?
No, just the last about 5 seconds.
Oh, okay. So I don't know what happened there. I have cats. But the reason we're doing this story now is because I was getting word, and I was not able to confirm this. So I don't want to put this out there as factual, but there were some people who had said, some people on Twitter and who approached me directly, who said that during a live event, Jimmy Dore had criticized the Vanguard, who was forwarding the same kind of concerns with the petitioners, and that this had just happened within days. So my concern was, okay, whatever bridge building effort you were trying to do, maybe it's not working if this is happening. So I had other people saying they never heard it, that because it was on a live, it was not reported and posted. I found no video evidence other than hearsay from other people who said they saw it, and then a couple people who said they didn't. So I'm left with, well, did it or did it not happen? But at this time, we're well into June now. And I have been sitting on this story where we, both Andy and I, are part of this story and culpable, because to me, omission is still a lie. And I knew all of this was going on, and we never said anything. And it made me extraordinarily uncomfortable. So what we wanted to do was tell the story and tell it in terms of servant leadership, because here are so many examples of failures of leadership, including ourselves, right? So we may have had the best of intentions and stood down, but did we not fail a little bit in that morality, because we have the omission, even though we were trying to make this trade that there would be bridges built. So I don't know, this is where I'm still struggling, and it's me with my accountability moment in this, saying, Kamilah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we didn't come out with this story sooner. I did reach out to Independent Left, and I reached out to Shane. Both of them had no comment. They were well aware that we were doing this segment today, and we're trying to do it responsibly. But Kamilah, what's next? What happens from here?
Well, I've given KRTD Media the deadline of June 25th, kind of like a 2-week notice to them about, it's like, get your stuff together and decide if I'm going to be on the team or not. I mean, if you don't want me there, then let me know and let me go. You know, like no need to, drag me along like I'm some side chick you know, that you think you can pull from a base or something and you can just utilize how you want to utilize me. No. Like, make a decision, make a commitment, and to that, and let me accept whatever that news is. You know what I mean? Because this doesn't bode well for anything or anyone, even KRTD Media itself. And they're, like I said, they're a startup. Nobody really knows them outside of the US Solution Summit, as far as I'm concerned. And part of my job was to help build that, to help build a base, to help build, viewers to the shows that are, co-streamed or totally branded, through KRTD Media. And I pretty much have been like halted on that work for almost a month because they don't know what they can do. And when it comes to this bridge building thing, which I want to like also put this in perspective as well. I was purged, with my peers in January. Others were purged in February. And Nick Brana and his national coordinators circle refused to go on platforms like the Vanguard, who offered them opportunity to come and tell their side of the story or what was going on. Frank Analysis also reached out to that leadership and told them, you can come on our show and, explain your side of things, et cetera, et cetera. And that was with or without us petitioners. So they've had plenty of opportunity to really show their side. But see, now they're on damage control because a lot of things are starting to pour out. Like, we're starting to see, for lack of better words, their panties all out, in public. And there are people who are still got blinders on, like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to, And then there's us that's like, you need to look at it. You need to take off the blinders. You need to take off those rose-colored lenses and see them for who and what they are. They're not an example of servant leadership. They're not even an example of a real organization, quote unquote, movement, or whatever they want to call themselves. And we've been whistleblowing about this for the longest time. And I've even been like adamant of us like constantly going on different shows. I don't care if it's a big show like The Hill Rising or if it's a smaller platform. The story behind the People's Party needs to be out to the public. They need to get the alarm bells. They need to get the warnings that if you get yourself into this, you are setting yourself up for your values to be tested, for what you stand for to be like seen as not serious with you. And people are now they're doing a campaign on like, trying to get candidates to run MPP. They don't even have the money to back anybody running as a People's Party candidate, because there are people who they might not say anything, but they know what's behind the veil of what they advertise, which is why Nick Brana goes to safe spaces like Jimmy Dore, like Lee Camp, because he knows he's not going to get pressed on the organization. He's only going to, he's going to answer, with a script and then bust out a platitude and figure people are going to forget about the truth about NPP. So servant leaders need to be, servant leadership, that's why I'm glad you're covering it, because it needs to be more addressed on the left. It is newsworthy.
So shout out to Ellie Spawn. Ellie Spawn is offering you a job, actually. Ellie Spawn is the executive director of the National Progressive Party. On Facebook, it's organizing the National Progressive Party. Both Annie and I were volunteers for this organization. She actually she's a badass. She survived a hostile takeover, co-opting effort, and is still standing. So she's saying if Shane doesn't want you, we do. And the National Progressive Party has a seat at the table for all of you. So thank you, Ellie, for, hold on to good people. And then Leslie is also saying this is why I don't do political parties. And yeah, it's not for everybody to do political parties. If you have a candidate that you like, support that candidate. Do the best you can for that candidate. Mags is also saying, wondering how they are paying salaries for Justice Dem finance person. Wait, what, Max? What is this?
Yeah, they've
They're
been
paying.
hiring Justice Democrats for different roles. Now, as far as finances, I've been unsure about that. If they are doing it, they haven't reported to the IRS, or it's being under the table. But they accuse us of being Democratic Party operatives and sheep herders and all that kind of stuff, while they are hiring Justice Democrats.
Yeah.
I, put two and two together. That don't make sense. Somebody make it make sense.
And I thought here we were all just Russian assets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we
Oh,
we
well, except
we
for me, of
call
course,
all
which
kinds
is
of things as petitioners.
which is
Yeah.
I'm just a Russian ass, but the rest of you assets.
Right. Right, exactly. So, yeah, Leslie, organizing a political education is the key. This is why we exist, right? So this is what Andy and I are trying to do, and we don't necessarily play in the same spaces that our brothers and sisters in the left podcast space do. We cater to the red MAGA and the blue MAGA because we want them to come in and be fiscally literate, politically savvy, and engage in critical thinking. So this is what we do on our show. It's an entirely different organization, and here, this is my message to indie left. We don't play in the 1% of the progressive online media. Our audience is the 56% of the United States who is not politically aligned, but still pissed off and trying to figure out why they're playing by the rules and working as hard as they can, and their family and communities are still suffering and dying. That's our audience. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree with that. And I just want our audience to be perfectly clear on this. The whole reason for this show is for lack of a better term, a teaching moment, right? All three of our shows this week are meant to educate people on how to be better leaders. Today's show with Kamilah is just a part, or is a part of that education, right? We're not trying to knock down an organization or point fingers or say, look, blah, blah, blah. We want this to be a teaching moment, but we also want it to be a teaching moment for the people that are involved in this story, right? Because if we can have the mindset of doing the right things because it's the right thing, not because it's beneficial to you, but because we have to live our messages, right? If we can teach that to the organizations that we're discussing today, then we've done our job, right? That's what ultimately we wanted to do. We want to become better people, better progressives through our policy choices, through our daily life choices, and move forward together. And if we do that, then we've accomplished our goal here, right?
I think so. So, Kamilah, we just love you to death. Love all your work. We so appreciate everything you did for our show on the KRTD network for marketing. You obviously have plenty of opportunities in front of you. I hope that what you've weathered with MPP and now this current situation, you're not giving up or not too jaded. Don't be like me.
Yeah, I'm at a point where I'm not giving up, because it's like I said, even in other interviews that I've done, as by myself or with a panel of my fellow petitioners. I have nothing here in Inglewood, California, where I'm from. We don't have DSA. We don't have Green Party. We don't we don't have. I mean, I was the person that was supposed to bring MPP to my regional area, let alone my city. Um, we don't even have, like, workers family, but we don't have none of that stuff in my area. And so, I mean, it's staunch Democrat, crazy blue in my South Bay regional area. So, like you was talking about political education, like I'm big on voter literacy and education. Like I have a passion for that. And then, like, after my experience with the People's Party, I have a passion for volunteer and organizer rights, justice, and unions. These are two areas that I think are very important when it comes to local work that people need to dive into. Build organizations that are not grifts. You know, actually, you know, do mutual aid, you know, support things like that. You know, start local. Um, you know, everybody on the left seems to be looking for some messiah, you know, for some reason. I don't understand why. You know, I get Bernie was kind of like a messiah for a lot of people, Bernie Sanders. But that has to be let go. And you got to be a free thinker, you know, to your points about the critical thinking. You got to be a free thinker now, you know, because you might not have faith and trust in the electoral politics, but the issues are still going to be the issues. And you're still going to have to find some kind of, you know, jolt in you to want to work instead of just being on Twitter all day. I mean, I do a lot of Twitter and stuff, but I'm still doing all those other things like trying to find opportunities. I'm in an organizer training class that was 6 weeks long. Our final week is actually coming up next week. I also got invited to be in a writers workshop that's coming up in July. So it's not like I'm constantly on social media, even though I do a lot of social media. I'm always looking for opportunities to where I can develop as a person, how I can develop as a servant leader, and really be about the people, because that's what it is at the end of the day. It's not about me. I don't want to be like on a pedestal famous or nothing. I'm not Jimmy Dore. I'm not the king of the left or anything, or trying to be. So that kind of stuff. And I really appreciate you guys bringing me on and to talk about something different than the DNC and AOC and all that stuff like you see all day on the other channels. I really appreciate that.
No, well, we appreciate you helping to tell the story, because it seems like we have, like you said, people are looking for a messiah instead of looking inside. And this is where servant leadership means you as the individual, you as the person, you can create that leadership in yourself. And it's not easy. It takes some really hard lessons and diminishing your ego in order to become that leader. And as we said on Monday, the whole marketing scheme of leaders are born not made is complete and utter bullshit. And this is why we wanted to bring this subject on. So I thank you for helping tell the story. So Friday, we're going to do an overview recap, not only on this situation, but in general. How do you fix this? So here we have these lessons of the cascade of failures from one person with influence to another group to even us here on this network. What is the catalyst for change? And that, in a nutshell, is accountability. So we're going to discuss that from a servant leadership perspective in what should have happened with everything that went on in this scenario, so that people can understand it in their own lives. Because as we opened the show, we talked about, we will all be tested in very small ways and very big ways. And you're never going to see it coming. It's going to hit you like a bus. So you have to do the preparation and the training and the exercises to be ready for it. And how do you embrace it and succeed time and time again? So that's going to be our Friday show. So I hope everybody who's tuned in this morning, that you will join us back for this. And it's, like I said, it's something, this is what I've been passionate about, because I used to teach servant leadership and go through the exercises in either an 8 or 12-week course, because it matters. And we forget, or we were never taught these skills. So just real quick before we get out of here, Kamilah, I'm gonna let you have the last word, then Andy will take us out. But I want to thank everybody who joined in. Renee, thank you for the information that you provided real time. Thank you. Lisa, Ellie Spawn, thank you. Oz is joining us. Good morning, Oz. Mags, just everybody, RTA, thank you so much for joining in this conversation. And I hope that you will share not just this episode, but we will have the entire series and the overview of servant leadership wrapped up on Friday. So thank you for that. So Kamilah, any last thoughts that you want to leave people with?
Just, again, thank you both for, supporting me, for, allowing me to come on your platform, testify, interview, talk about like I said, something different than we normally see on channels and stuff. And also, you know, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Black Unicorn Rose. That's BLK, where Unicorn Rose, all in one word. And the petitioners group is MPP Petitioners. And we also have another page that's kind of like a play off of that. It's called MPP Grift as well. You can follow that on Twitter. And to check out our information, go to, you know, petitionmpp.com. We have receipts on there about, you know, some of our experiences. Even there's the Black Voter Circle, which I was in. We have our statement on there as well, to get a sense of, you know, what we survived. I say we survived, you know, these things, and we learned a bunch of lessons ourselves and everything else that we're a part of. And yeah, please support this show. Like, please press that, you know, subscribe button, press the, you know, the bell for notifications, all of it. Spread this show, you know, because we need more political education based, people based type shows out there.
Well, thanks so much, Kamilah. And, you know, we appreciate you so much and hope that this is, you know, just the continuation of our relationship with you and in whatever you decide that you want to, how you want to move forward. And hopefully that's with us in mind as well. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Carrie, again, you, as always, you are the star of this show in my eyes, and always do a wonderful job with everything you do. I hope everybody enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you here bright and early on Friday morning. Take care.
We bout that, ayy. We in the zone. We out here, yeah. Spitting the facts, how it's supposed to be. Hammer the dog, we keeping it G.